Alrighty, here we go. It's time for a new episode of Max and Stacy Orange Pill Podcast. I am Max.
I'm Stacy, right? I know you looked at me like confused about who I was.
Well,
it's probably because there's so many
is,
Maxes on the one set. There's a Max Kaiser right across from me, and there's a Max Kaiser image on the shirt on the Max Kaiser there.
It's very meta, isn't it?
I think it fits with that. There's a story out that Cern is like supposed to. They said there's going to be a parallel dimension. They think they might find. Let me find it because
it's opening up the parallel dimension at Cern. This is what I've been dreading. The particle accelerators colliding subatomic particles to the point where you open up a wormhole into a parallel dimension. It sucks everybody in there and disappear like a bad episode of I Love Lucy.
Right. Max has far away from his mic. Maybe it might be a little bit more echoey on his side, but nevertheless, I'm going to speak on my side, and it's going to be nice and rich and complex sound. Researchers at Large Hadron Collider are confident to make contact with parallel universe in days. So we might just have days left. Nevertheless, I wonder if we're also volcano mining in this parallel dimension.
Oh yeah, well, it all comes from the future. So the illusion that we suffer through on a daily basis is that time is flowing in the direction we believe it to be flowing, but actually we're going backwards, and the future is catching up to us. And when these two merge, it's called the Bitcoin singularity. So it's going to happen around block, I don't know where we're at, 780,000 or so, whatever block we're in now. It's going to be within the next few days, and then we'll all see the face of Satoshi. This is what we're all working for.
Maybe maybe the fact is that this is something that happens every single day. Like we encounter parallel dimensions every day, the parallel universes, because they say like there's an infinite number of universes, and there's a Max Kaiser in every single one of them, and you've taken a different path or a different road in each one of them. And so when you have a dream, like maybe the dream state, like you're paralyzed for like safety, or there's like you're in the parallel universe and your body can't move in there. Maybe that's why we fall asleep. That's the reason for it. And like when you encounter yourself in the sleep, it's actually the parallel dimension, Max. Or
you meet yourself coming from the future. And this was the premise of Groundhog Day, right? With Bill Murray. He wakes up every day at 6 o'clock in the morning to Sonny and Cher singing "I've Got You, Babe." But he has to relive that same day over and over and over again until he learns lessons of life that are necessary to be a good person. And at the end of the film, he makes the transformation from being a snotty weather guy that everybody hates to being a lovable guy who falls in love. And that's the whole premise. So if Cern is opening up this parallel dimension, then we will enter the Bill Murrayfication, which is like the spaghettification. And we are going to meet Ally McDowell in the parallel universe.
I'm not sure anybody knows who Ally McDowell is, but the point is, it feels to me like there should be a vote on this, like whether or not we all want to contact a parallel universe. I mean, first, obviously, you would think in the old days, like say 20, 30 years ago, if aliens contacted us then and we had these alien life forms and spaceships and dead alien bodies, as the US government is now saying, like that would have been pretty big news. Like back in our day, Max, like that would have been big news because not much happened in the 80s and 90s. It was just like a few Ronald Reagan speeches and not much else happened. We had a few serial killers. That was it. Now it's like so much shit is happening all over the place, freak outville everywhere. And like so much is happening. And I saw a great meme of like the two little images. On the top, the alien comes and says, "Hey dude, I'm an alien. We're here from outer space." And he's like, the guy looks disinterested. He's like, "Aren't you scared?" He's like, "I got a lot on my plate actually." So it's like, that's like where we're at right now.
Another conspiracy theory comes true.
Yeah.
Right? As you say, since the 1950s, we've been worried about the presence of aliens and UFOs and intergalactic space warriors. And now that they finally arrived, the attitude is, well, we've seen that film already and we're not that impressed.
I guess it's what John F. Kennedy said, right? JFK said, you have nothing to fear but fear itself. Was it him or Churchill? It was one of those guys, right?
Yeah.
Somebody from the past. They said you only have fear Because that's the thing is like people will work themselves up about fear about something happening, and then it happens, and you're like, oh, it actually wasn't as bad as I feared.
That's the lesson of life.
Yeah.
That's the Bill Murrification. That's what the aliens will tell us. They'll come here through the intergalactic wormhole and they'll say, guess what? Nothing to fear. Then they'll get back on the spaceship and jet back to the galaxy, the dimension that they came from. That's the message.
Okay. Well, you know, so far it doesn't seem bad. If aliens have been here, like, it seems okay. Like, who knows? Or maybe they're causing all this chaos. Maybe they're causing, you know, the entropy and all the collapse that we're witnessing.
What if there's a gang war happening intergalactic space-time and the two gangs have decided to fight it out on Earth? So they're both arrived simultaneously, like in Romeo and Juliet or West Side Story. You know, you've got the Jets and the Sharks, and they agree to meet and have a street and a gang fight at the wherever it was, the playground or something. So maybe the Jets and the Sharks of intergalactic space beings have said, look, let's just settle this once and for all. We're going to meet on planet Earth, and we're going to have a mega fight to the death. So we're going to host this mega intergalactic battle. We'll see who wins.
Well, that'll be cool. Certainly it'll play out on Twitter. You know, that's where all the action will be. Everything's happening on Twitter because Tucker Carlson has moved his show there. I think he did episode 2 just today. I guess is he doing it daily? I guess it's a daily show, right? So his first episode got like 130 million views, and then this official first, like he did a preamble, right? Like he did a pilot episode, and that was a short one. But this, like, he's doing official full length, like half-hour programs, 26-minute sort of programs. And the first one got over 100 million, and now this second one, it was racking up tens of millions every few minutes. So it's a phenomenon.
Yeah, so a chart, you know, comparing his traffic to the cable news networks, and the highest, most viewed cable show of all the cable shows is like 2.5 to 3 million. That's like the top of the top.
Yeah.
The average is like 1.7 to 1.9 million views. He's getting, I think I saw 107 million impressions for yesterday's premiere show of Tucker Carlson on Twitter, Tucker on Twitter. And I think they were saying that means roughly 23 million views of the actual show. Mm-hmm. So that is still just incredibly higher numbers than anything else out there in media land.
Well, it's kind of like these sort of moments have happened. We've been there in the internet where there's a direct connection, and then the corporations come in and like they put a firewall and a gatekeeping, you know, they charge some fees or some sort of gatekeeping and you know, censorship into the system. Like the early internet, there was more an immediate one-on-one, like in the forum boards, and, you know, you shared you know, the dancing baby memes and stuff like that. But here he's able to connect directly to his audience, right? In a way that had to be intermediated before through flashy graphics, flashy cutaways, you know, fancy lighting, and all sorts of marketing campaigns. And this is just him in his home in Florida or Maine, and just directly to the audience. No filters, no nothing. It's just him and the camera speaking directly to it. No cutaways, no graphics, nothing.
Yeah, I mean, like, think about the marketing campaigns for Fox News hosts like Laura Ingraham.
Yeah.
You know, there's billboards, there's ads, there's interstitials with just Laura Ingraham and all those fancy shots. And she's got to keep up her Laura Ingraham image, and that's got to take a lot of maintenance. Same thing with Sean Hannity and all those other hosts. I mean, there's a lot of money that goes into developing that talent, and they're treated like stars, and they get paid like stars, and they make it an entertainment, and people who watch it are there for two things: entertainment, and maybe they get a little information. But here Tucker's just saying, look, that's just me essentially in my cabin, wherever he is, and I'm going to be Edward R. Murrow. I'm just going to give news. I'm going to do journalism.
Yeah.
And people are so starved for that because they haven't had journalists. He was the only journalist in America. Him and Matt Taibbi and maybe a few others. That was it. So now, okay, here's the journalist. He's accessible. He's on Twitter, and people are watching it. And there's a hunger for it. There's a thirst for it because we haven't had that level of journalism in a long time.
It's kind of as well like a Howard Beale sort of moment. Like he's just like, you know, there's a sense of people around the world from the top to the bottom, you know, the influencers like Tucker, to the huge audience around the world to just, like, they're fed up, right? They're all fed up. And it's pretty amazing moment, because you wonder, the path that has been taken for all of us to arrive at this moment. Certainly, if Elon Musk had not bought Twitter, this would be a different moment. It would be like this moment wouldn't be here.
Absolutely. He's a media baron. And throughout American history, and I would imagine around the world, media barons have had a huge impact on the media landscape and have shaped the narrative.
Sure.
And I think it was Hearst who said something like, you give me the war and I'll give you the headlines, or the reverse of that. I'll give you the headlines, you give me the war.
Yeah.
And I'm misquoting that, but look it up and you'll get down into the nitty gritty of it. But you mentioned Howard Beale, of course, is from the famous film Network. Patty Chayefsky is the screenwriter of that film. And this was during the 70s when films were much more political. Yeah. And this was a very shocking commentary on the media landscape of that day. The newswoman, as played by Faye Dunaway, was so ambitious and so cutthroat that it ended up doing TV shows where there was a live assassination on the show and this type of thing. And it was sardonic. It was supposed to be sarcastic. It was like, the film that for some frickin' reason I can never remember the name, Dr. Strangelove, right? It was that level of sardonic humor, and it was pivotal for that time. But here we are in 2023, so we're echoing the 1970s. And what else was going on in the 1970s? Oh, you had Kennedys were a lot more active.
The Kennedys, well, it's after all their assassinations, but that was the thing, is this is the end days of the boomers. In the 70s, they were just getting started. They were in their late teens, early 20s. They were the Cultural Revolution. And of course, at that time, they were very against the FBI and CIA. The CIA were assassinating leaders around the world and overthrowing governments with coups. And then in the U.S., we had the FBI doing COINTELPRO, basically, joining activist groups and messing with stuff, right? And what we had after that was the Church Committee, and I think it was 72, 73, 74 area. And the Church Committee, I think it was Frank Church, was a powerful, a politician who, they threw the book. They deeply examined the FBI and CIA and their interference in U.S. domestic politics and the rights of citizens to congregate and to meet and to discuss things. Now, those very same boomers from that age, the very same exact ones, and even RFK Jr. is back in the scene.
The big difference is that,
they embrace it. They're embracing it, and they're pushing the authoritarianism and the COINTELPRO and the assassinations.
Yeah, exactly. Back then it was the Republicans were the bad guys, and the left were fighting the women's rights movement, the gay rights movement, the Black Power movement. And now it's flipped, right? Now the Democrats and the liberals are the authoritarian dictators. And the Republicans, like Tucker Carlson, I think is safe to say, he's on right of center in the political spectrum, are the good guys now. It's totally flipped.
Yeah. Well, certainly the position towards the FBI in particular, the Domestic Intelligence Agency, is the exact opposite. They started out in the 70s against them, and they fought against them, and they fought the infiltration, and they fought basically the violation of U.S. American rights, constitutional rights. And now they're the ones pushing it. The Silicon Valley, Wall Street, all the lovies, they're the ones that are pushing it onto everybody else. So, it's pretty shocking. But, again, like here we are, we report on stuff that we could see because of Twitter. You see it going through your timeline, and you see Tucker Carlson's like Howard Beale, and he's upset about the situation. But we are outside of the United States. We're in a citadel, a Bitcoin citadel, a Renaissance 2.0 happening. Things keep on getting better every day. You could clearly see on Twitter, you can see on American Twitter, on U.S. Twitter, that things get worse by the day. Every single day is worse than the last day. So much so that aliens arrived and nobody cared. Like, they just did not give a F. So, like here, if an alien showed up in El Salvador, people would like talk about it. They would be like, what the hell? What is an alien doing here? In America, nobody's like, I just stepped over a guy defecating, was shooting up fentanyl, and oh, there's an alien in my living room. Like, it makes sense. Like, here, it wouldn't make sense. Like, people would notice an alien arrival.
Yeah, the getting better -o-meter here is going up every day.
Yeah.
Click, click, click. And in the U.S., it's going down, down, down. And it is a stark contrast. And I think people living in the U.S. and around the world, like in Canada, for example, all kinds of things happening there. They have the perception that, well, this is happening all over the world, so, we just have to go with it. Yeah. But that's not true. There is a country where it's actually bucking the trend. Things are going in the opposite direction, and that would be El Salvador. And we see it in El Salvador. And people come and visit. They also comment in the same thing.
Yeah, because I saw another meme this past week. Great cultures are built on proof of work and die on proof of stake. So this is the death phase of the U.S. It's obviously proof of stake, with the baby boomers really dramatizing the whole thing. We all know they inherited a great empire, huge resources, an amazing brand value. America had a huge brand value coming out of the World War II, and the hard work and the effort that the generation put in that had survived the Great Depression, had built up America as it had become these great cities, great industrial power. And then the boomers were born as celebratory. We won World War II. We're the heroes. We have no debt. We're like, everybody owes us money. We saved the world. And then they just, we see the decay now. We see what they did with that proof of stake. They were handed all of these gifts. They didn't have to work. They just got to do free love and peace and hippie stuff and just like blow it, right? So here in El Salvador, it's proof of stake. Like, it's proof of work. We're working hard, and you see that. You see the results. Like, the headlines this week, even Reuters, which Reuters likes, Reuters is part of that, which we just talked about, that that CIA, FBI sort of complex of of managing, perception from the U.S. audience about who is the enemy this week, the 2 minutes of hate, for whatever new person they hate, or they always hate whoever's resisting them or standing up to them and not being obedient and bowing as they walk past. So they've always been pretty, nasty recently about El Salvador, but it's hard to even spin it anymore. Like, so many good things are happening here that even Reuters is writing good articles about volcano energy. They're blazing headlines saying, El Salvador raises $1 billion for Bitcoin mining venture. This is 3% of GDP in one investment that we helped raise. We're part of it. So, this is because we just have our head down and keep on working. Like, it's not just, we're not resting on the laurels of our grandfathers. Like, my grandfather landed at Normandy. Like, I'm not resting on his laurels like the rest of the United States has done. We're working. And this is the payoff.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. The media, like Reuters, it's really hard to hide the fact that so many great things are happening here. And the volcano energy story is certainly a story that is being picked up all over the world and covered in really in a positive way. And so much is happening every single week, and that it's hard to spin it in a negative way. And people now are realizing that the media that they're being spoon-fed for so long, they think they were tolerant of the lies for a long time because they were part of the fiat money cycle. They were getting lots of free money. Interest rates were 0%. So people turned a blind eye. But now that rates are higher and inflation's kicking in and people are actually like thinking, wait a minute, this isn't working the way we thought it was going to work. And the media is equally culpable with the politicians and with the bankers. Oh, and what's happening in El Salvador? Actually, they're doing the right thing.
Well, it's that proof of stake thing, like you said, is like you see this with the shitcoin market, is like you see absolute exuberance when they think they're part of the Ponzi. They think they're benefiting from the Ponzi. They think they're plundering somebody else's. There's another bag holder out there to take their bag of like fake proof of stake coins. So, but as soon as it starts to unwind, what do you see? Like serious cope, like mental breakdown on crypto Twitter, right? And that's what has been happening in America because, you know, you're raised on propaganda, and the propaganda tells you that we're, you know, the exceptional country, we have the exorbitant privilege, this is something divine. So mysterious, like we're just divine, like we're blessed by this, and don't ask questions of like where it comes from, because obviously you're sitting at home and you've never worked a day in your life, and we send you Biden bucks, and you get to live like a king while the rest of the world struggles. Don't ask questions of where it comes from. It's just like, but once the reality is starting to creep in, and Bitcoin did reveal this all because it was a new proof of work coin that forced the revelation of the con of this Ponzi scheme that had been, you know, it was a very successful Ponzi scheme. You have to say the U.S. was way more successful than Bernie Madoff at perpetuating this for many, many years, decades, and it's unwinding. And the original people who coded the Ponzi in 1971, like they're no longer here. Well, actually, some of them are. Like Joe Biden first came into office, I think, in 72, but obviously he doesn't remember the 70s for sure, right? So they don't know the original source code of like, they're all like, it's like that the last week when we talked about the CEO that they couldn't get in touch with. It's like, so they don't know how to reset the button.
It's a cargo cult.
Yeah.
Right? So they do the shibboleths. As the guy at FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried, said, we just perform the shibboleths. We just perform the rituals. You just tell them what they want to hear. And they are so conditioned to be triggered by these phrases and words that they will start writing these fat checks of all that fiat money, and then we'll use that to buy these huge properties and where we're living and around the world. And so that kept on feeding on itself to be created into this mega quadrillion, you know, Ponzi scheme. But I like this word cope, because it's like a Twitter, you know, it's such a Twitter word, you know, it's just cope has emerged or copium, you know, and it's just like, it's just such a great little 4-letter word that just says so much.
Yeah. So proof of stake is when they, you know, a generation blows the wealth that the previous one had created. Here, what we're doing with Volcano Energy, this investment, it's $1 billion investment. So we have $1 billion committed. Obviously, when it's a startup, right? So when you deploy the capital, you can only deploy you can't deploy the $1 billion in the next month. Like there's phases of building the infrastructure project. So the first phase is this $250 million. But what we're building, and we're not using debt, no leverage, no debt. So we are sovereign and self-reliant. Like there's no messing with this. We're building sovereign wealth, right? So this is the beginning. And I think a lot of people missed this about this story this past week, is that this is the beginning of a sovereign wealth fund for El Salvador.
Everybody missed that angle.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely correct. This is something you brought up a few days ago, and you're like, oh, you know what? This is actually a sovereign wealth fund.
Yes.
Because we're tapping into the geothermal and
stacking
sats, and it going into the coffers of the country. And so this is a sovereign wealth fund, Bitcoin-based sovereign wealth fund. It's the first Bitcoin-based sovereign wealth fund in the world.
Yes.
And so this has ramifications for future generations.
Yes.
So the time preference is high.
Low. No. You fail. I'm going to tell Safe Dean.
Tell Safe Dean.
You fail. He's our new advisor.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So, but nevertheless, the future generations would benefit by this sovereign wealth fund built on Bitcoin. And so this new $1 billion startup, Volcano Energy, is exactly that. So, and it's gotten great press, as we mentioned. Even Reuters, that's been kind of negative, has had to come out and say, you know, this looks fantastic. everyone else, anybody who had anything negative to say about it, they're still in shock. I'm sure maybe in a week or two they'll come around to their fandangled kind of criticisms. But for the moment, we have this blissful period where they have no idea how to react to this ultra positive news.
It's been over a year, over a year that I've had Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal telling me, the journalists tell me, hey, you're never going to raise the $1 billion. I'm like, we've actually had the $1 billion committed for a while. Like we know we've had it. And I've told them, I said, no, we have the $1 billion. They're like, no, you don't. And I'm like, are you me? Like, do you know? like, who are you? How do you know from your seat in Washington, D.C. or New York? Like, how do you know? But, you know, it takes quite a while to structure things and put them together and do the deal. And you know, it's not like a simple process. But now it's rocket ship launch, right? Like we announce when it's ready to launch. Like we've been building, you know, quietly, humbly, just stacking sats while everybody else is, you know, running around asking for bailouts for all their failed Ponzi schemes that blew up while, you know, they were speculating in the casino, in the Shitcoin casino. We were just quietly building, and just like occasionally, you know, Max and I would look out on Twitter. Oh, wow. Yep. Another huge multi-billion-dollar wipeout in America on some crypto staking, DeFi, Web3 sort of shitcoin token sort of scheme. Oh, well, you know, and we were in some sort of paradise. This is a citadel, and we were, you know, protected. It is a literal citadel, like a moat. The Bitcoin moat protects us from just the nonstop plunder and scammery.
Absolutely. And one of the things I think is interesting to point out, reading through the press releases, et cetera, is that this project gives the Bitcoin network some geodiversity, right? Because you want the network to be as decentralized as possible in as many countries as possible. And so this will be a major stronghold of geodiversity of the Bitcoin network mining here in El Salvador to support the network, because this country supports Bitcoin becoming world reserve currency.
The other news this week, of course, along these same lines of self-determination, we get to decide. So we're building a FU energy grid for our FU money. So we have the FU money, but all economies need energy, right? Everything ties to energy and money. So we need an FU money energy grid that can't be fucked with. And that's what we're building. But we're also building the self-reliance of the hardcore talent here, the excellence here. So, you know, we have now, you know, we're doing the Kuba Plus. And that's, of course, everybody remembers when Safedine was here just like 2 weeks ago lecturing there. So we've done the first part of a 3-part course over the course of 6 months. And we did the first section, which is more philosophical, ideological, the philosophy of Bitcoin and the history of cypherpunks and stuff like that. That was like around 40, give or take 5 students. And now we've narrowed it down to a really tough test, like really vigorous test to get into the next phase, which is super intensive with all these top Bitcoin engineers around the world, Peter Todd, Jimmy Song, Lisa Nygut. They're all coming here to train our Bitcoin and Lightning devs in person, boot camps, in-person lectures, you know, actual demonstration of, you know, hackathon sort of things, online mentorship with these top talent around the world as well. So that process begins from next week. And we've now narrowed it down, and it remarkably is to 21 students. So 21, we were expecting like 12, because it's really tough. It's not like we're not doing any sort of like making it easier for anybody. Like we're putting up to the top standards globally. Like we're not making it easier for anybody to like try to be nice to, you know, because it's a developing economy or something. We're saying like, here's Renaissance 2.0, your Bitcoin citadel, your Bitcoin country. You need to be the best. So let's train the best. And so these are the very best in the world. These are the top gun students of the world. And we have 21 of them. They're going to take that with these 21 people in an economy of this size, a $28 billion economy and 6.5 million people here. 21 people can change the world. And we're training. Of course, we did the Jimmy Song 7 last year, but now we have these 21 and a bigger, longer, deeper course. They're all guaranteed a job at the end with top Bitcoin companies, Bitcoin only, not shitcoin companies. So we keep on. We don't stop. Like, it's proof of work every day. We don't say, oh my God, we just achieved all this volcano energy and we're great. We raised $1 billion. Let's, go lie on the beach and swim and have fun and drink mojitos. No, we wake up. Okay, let's get these 21 students. We have to train them because we need to think of what happens in 5 years, 10 years down the road. So now we have these 21 students and they're going to be trained, like I said, by Peter Todd, Jimmy Song, Lisa Niga, and a dozen others that are coming.
The country is benefiting from a brain gain.
Yes.
Not a brain drain.
Yes.
So the brains are coming here. Also, I noticed on the immigration front that now it's official, the rate of people leaving El Salvador has dropped by 40%.
Yes, the U.S. ambassador to El Salvador actually mentioned that.
Yes, and so that means our prediction that at some point it's going to flip. You're going to have more people coming here than leaving here, and that looks like it's fast approaching. Yeah. And that'll be another big story. And then at some point, also the airport just announced that they are expanding, or they're at capacity. They had something like 1.7 million tourists already in 2023, a new shattering all records. They had the big surfing tournament already. I mean, it's going to start to get, make your flight schedule now. I mean, at some point, the ARC, you're going to pull up the drawbridge, and it's going to be, you're too late.
Well, we definitely only want the best and the brightest. So, luckily only the best and the brightest watch this show. So that's good. Like, sure. you don't want the same people, snorting fentanyl and publicly defecating in San Francisco. You don't want that same sort of people.
There was a fentanyl defecating group that booked a cruise ship to come in, and we said, no thanks.
No, I mean, look, it's happened to Austin. Austin used to be cool, and a bunch of Californians hated. I mean, they're like Parisians, right? Parisians are horrible. Nobody likes them. But at least Parisians stay with each other and they just hate each other all day long. Like, everybody knows Parisians are rude, but what they don't know is like they are the rudest to each other. Like, they hate each other so much because they are rude people. So they're surrounded by each other all day long. So they hate each other. But Californians created a disaster all around them, and oh, this place stinks. It's horrible. People are defecating, this fentanyl abuse, all the high taxes. Let's move to Austin. And then they bring the same exact behavior there and the same exact culture. And you're like, what the hell? You just ruined our freaking paradise here. We had a cool city. Now we have to leave. Like, thank you very much, you freaking Californians.
Right. The moat, Bitcoin moat, Citadel Nation, Bitcoin country is getting harder. Like, the currency itself, Bitcoin, gets harder every day as hash rate goes up. It's getting harder. It's getting better. And so is El Salvador. And so the barrier to come in, it keeps going up every single day because those people who are really responsive to proof of work and excellence are getting the message. And as they come in, it's as it says in the Bible, the road narrows. The road narrows. The
road narrows, and we're going to maintain our toxicity to pandias. Like, we don't want plunderers. Plunder used to be a way of life in El Salvador for decades. Those days are over. We don't want your proof of stake. We don't want you stealing our Bitcoin. We don't want you lying around with your stupid pre-mine and scamming everybody in this country. We don't want that. So we're building a white-collar prison. That's a place that those people could go. We don't want plunder.
Bukele said in his recent address to the nation that this is no longer the same country.
Exactly. That's what President Bukele said, that it's no longer the same country. And things are only getting better. And that's the truth. So anyway, it's a stark contrast between here and Twitter. I mean, I like having Twitter. It gives us like a news feed to the outside world to see how bad things are. And like, if you ever think of like, oh, maybe we're missing something out there. And it just takes like literally about 20, 30 seconds. You go, holy shit. Okay.
Whoa.
I'm not going out there.
Opening a scary door and seeing burning, and like Canada is on fire, and New York is a big cloud of worst air quality in the world. It's like, wow, okay, I'll shut that door. I'm not interested in going to New York this week.
That was a bit of a surprise. Hey, shut the fuck up. Like my Siri jumped on, like
Really?
every once in a while, Siri, I don't know how to turn it off. It's just like every once in a while it starts listening to me.
All right.
Well, you know, the CIA likes advanced copy of our show.
They're big fans. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if they have mass defection.
So, mass defecation.
Mass defecation at Langley. It's going to smell like San Francisco. I guess we're...
Let me see. I'm going to look at my list of the things.
Yes, check out.
Oh, of course. Well, I mean, part of the ugliness and grotesquerie and the end days of fiat, the shitcoinery is part of that, right? These are people who try to extend that sort of decadent plunder lifestyle, right? So we have had two pretty dramatic stories this week with Binance and Coinbase, two of probably the worst of the shitcoin casinos. I saw a friend's Coinbase app, and it truly is grotesque, right? They truly push their users into shitcoins. Like this notion that of certain people that used to be Bitcoiners who are now prominent VCs in the shitcoin space, that, somehow these companies helped onboard Bitcoiners. It's totally fallacious. If you look at their actual apps and the navigation on their site, they're navigating you towards the lowest return. Like if you're into a casino, just casinos do that psychologically. They push the losers to the slot machines where they're going to lose like all their quarters, right? So they push the losers there. And that's what the desperate, the poorest people get pushed to where the odds are highest against them. The wealthiest enter the casino and they go to the poker table, and there's a little bit more skill maybe involved. And there's the odds are less against them than with the slot machines, like the one-armed bandit where you just lose, right? You just go give them, $10 of that you've earned.
Right. I've said Coinbase is an unlicensed casino.
Yeah.
Because when they make markets and all these shitcoins on Coinbase, they use the exact same technology as a casino to increase or decrease the win percentage of trading on the platform by adjusting how to create an uptick or a downtick. I've talked about this before. And you do that on the back end. It's invisible to the user. So the users can suddenly be saying, oh, the stock is going up, I'm winning. But that's all manipulated to get them to make bigger bets. And then they do the rug pull. It's exactly like a casino. Coinbase is a casino, full stop.
Yeah.
And in California, you're not allowed to operate a casino. They should either go to Nevada, where casino are legal, and get a gambling license, or they should get closed down.
They should stop. Well, they should stop using like Bitcoin as they pretend they're Bitcoin, and then actually it's like I said, like people show up at the casino and they know they're going to lose the 10 or 20 or 30 or 40, $50 they put into the one-armed bandit. They're not going to get it back. They just put it in there, and something brings them joy, all the noises and maybe a free cheap drink or something like that. They like it. There's something that gives them pleasure from it, and people like losing their money. So I'm not going to stop people from doing that. We don't want to encourage it here, because if you're building a culture and you're building a Renaissance 2.0, let them go to Dubai, let them go to, Vegas, let them go somewhere like that. But with the Binance, the Coinbase is a very simple lawsuit by the SEC saying, they were offering unregistered securities, their staking products, yield products, all of that stuff. It's going to be settled easily, relative. The Binance stuff, like between CFTC and SEC, and many believe that based on the actual content of the charges against them from both the CFTC and the SEC, that there is obviously criminal charges coming from the Department of Justice, because the you were a broker, yourself, the securities laws, and those are criminal violations. Like the wash trading was like anybody could see it. Everybody could see, we all knew, like everybody pointed out it was open. People on Bitcoin Twitter said, oh, there's all this wash trading happening on Binance, which is very illegal. There's nothing even like, there's no easy excuse of like, oh, I forgot to file my taxes or whatever. Like you left a line out in your tax form, and it's not like a process crime like that. It's like intent. Like it's hard to like accidentally have 55% of your volume be wash trading. It's like, that's intent, right? So those could be more serious. So it'll be interesting to see. I think it's going to be harder for him because he's not American, and it's so he does have a lot of money, but it's difficult as a foreigner. The U.S. is a freaking brutal empire, and they will smash his kneecaps, and they don't care.
Right. CZ on Twitter, that when he tweets about it, he thinks from watching his Twitter that there is a evenly matched fight going on between Binance and the SEC.
Yeah.
It's not evenly matched.
Yeah.
The SEC is an 800-pound gorilla, and CZ is like Spud Webb. If you know the National Basketball Association, he's one of the shortest players to ever play the game, right? So, there's no matchup here. CZ lost from the moment that these proceedings began.
Yes.
And this is what people don't understand in this shitcoin space. This is what I try to tell people starting, 5 or 6 years ago when the SEC started to get involved and say, remember 5 years ago at the dinner in Washington, D.C., they had an SEC regulator speak. And I'm like, you don't get it. The SEC is never going to be your friend.
Well, okay. Like I said, Coinbase is not going to be a problem. He's American. It's a publicly listed company. Their, pension funds are invested in Coinbase. It's a different story. He could be American. He could say, SEC, this is unfair. These aren't securities. We don't believe you. Okay. But none of the charges in the SEC complaint against Coinbase, none of them are criminal. None of them are like you're going to jail for 40 years. The CFTC and the SEC complaints against Binance are criminal. Those are like big criminal charges that could be coming. So you play dead and you play like bow to the emperor and like render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and you shut the fuck up. That's what you do. That's what any lawyer should advocate for their client who is maybe he thinks he's going to be in some non-extradition country, but he won't be able to operate anywhere globally because the U.S. is the empire. So if it were just process crimes, he's acting like his charges are the same as what are against Coinbase. And he's like, hey, we're all on the same team. And he's like, did you read the charges against you? It's not the same. And even Coinbase issued a statement noting that the charges against them are different against the charges against a certain other company. It's like, if you're, if they're charging you with being a serial killer, you just shut up. Don't speak. Don't say anything. It was like, yo, buddy, you don't have jurisdiction over me. You're like, okay, they're saying you're a serial killer. Okay, that's not good.
No, when the Sam Bankman-Fried stuff was filed, it was very serious as well.
Yeah.
And he was being Department of Justice, and those folks were going after him, and it looked pretty serious. So,
yeah, but he's a little autistic man-child, right?
Yeah.
So that's why he was tweeting dumb stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
But he's American as well, so
Yeah.
it was gonna be easier for him.
Yeah, exactly. And this scale of this seems like it's even a more magnitude, more serious than even the Sam Bankman-Fried. And at that time, they were saying, oh, they throw the book at Sam Bankman-Fried. This is the worst charges ever levied on a financial institution I've ever seen in history. And then, oh, wait, CZ says, hold my beer. I'm going to be charged with even more egregious, outlandish, off the chart criminal behavior. And here we are.
Yeah. Well, we'll follow this story as a lot will happen next week. So the SEC filed an extraordinary temporary restraining order which is apparently extremely rare to ever even be issued by a U.S. judge. So the fact that the SEC filed for one, their burden of proof on an emergency order like that is way higher than a normal TRO. So this is if they are like, it's very difficult to get one. So if they receive a restraining order, then you know it's pretty bad news. So we'll see what happens next week. Who knows? But
Honey Badger don't care.
Bitcoin doesn't care, right?
No.
It's good news for Bitcoin.
It is.
Fact. So
Absolutely.
And it's good news for El Salvador, because once again, El Salvador avoided all of this because we just Bitcoin only, and that's it. And that's it for this episode of Orange Pill Podcast.
Well said. Until next time. Bye, y'all.